Cards on the table, right? I'm shite at games. Well, obviously, I'm in my late 30s, but that's not the reason. I've been shite at games since birth. I think it's because I've not got any competitive spirit or any interest in self-improvement. Which I can't blame on anything other than biological predeterminism. I'm only saying this because I'm predestined to, and therefore I won't be accepting any criticism. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown is, depending on who you're asking, the 6th or 9th mainline entry in the Prince of Persia series. Unlike previous entries in the series, but exactly like previouser entries in the series, it's played on a 2D plane. The new game is what they call a Metroidvania, which is either the worst name for a genre or the best name for a genre, depending on who you ask. And doing a new 2.5D entry that harkens back to the original Prince of Persia games on the Apple II is either, depending on who you ask, a death knell for the series or a massive return to form. I think we've just about covered the bases there. Dom has played a lot more of it than I have because they reviewed it and gave it 4 stars in a brilliant article that you can read on VG247.com right now. And I agree with Dom. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a really, really solid game. Generally, the combat is really Moorish, the exploration is so enticing, it's gorgeous. You'll probably agree that it's exactly as engaging as it should be to sustain someone through a 25-hour experience, which, considering that this is like a big climb down from the biggest historical platformer they've ever made, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which was about 400 hours long and engaging enough to sustain your interest for about like half of that, a third. But look, we're not here to talk about Assassin's Creed. We're not even here to talk about whether or not this new Prince of Persia is any good, because my boss has done that. Like I was saying earlier, I'm crap at games, but I like playing them. And Christ, I should be allowed, right? I pay taxes. Now, I should make a soft distinction here between accessibility options and difficulty options. There's a lot of crossover there, but difficulty options, you could argue, aren't necessarily about accessibility as much as they're about tweaking the experience for a person's entertainment needs as opposed to their access needs. But some people have disabilities where they have really long reaction times or whatever. You just don't know, right? I've been a little bit cheeky as well by calling difficulty options a controversial feature, because it's no controversial, but it is controversial if you're already, you know the people I'm talking about, the get out of my hobby sort of people, you know? Well, no, get out of you. It was my hobby before it was your hobby. I'm ancient. The Lost Crown has a great suite of accessibility options, a colorblind mode, ways to adjust the parry timing, and even a skip platforming button. So if there's a bit of particularly hard platforming that you just can't get past, no problem, flick this option on, a portal will appear that'll allow you to skip it. It just means that people who aren't necessarily able to play the game properly or as intended, they can still get their 50 quid's worth. Obviously, there's a massive business case for this in the sense that, hey, it opens your game up to more people. I think these things have become a lot more mature and a lot more accepted nowadays, just because game developers are people, and people generally like to do the right thing, I think. And of course, the other side of this is the difficulty options that are about skill issues. And the amount of tweaking you can do here is really good. Now, there's obviously your standard difficulty levels as your easy, your normal, your hard. That's all very well. We've had those in games for donkey's years, right? But what has often upset people about those sorts of modes is, for example, sometimes you can't change them when you've already started the game. That's not the case here, which is great. But you might find that most of the game for you is perfectly doable on normal mode or even hard mode, but it's just when you get to certain encounters like mini bosses and bosses that you tend to have to whack the difficulty down. Maybe you just can't pick up on a boss's tells the way other people seem to be able to, or maybe it's a reaction time thing again, and it's just the parry window for that specific boss is just too small and just doesn't quite arrive at a time that your brain expects it to, and so you just, you know, I had this issue with the very first boss in the game, which was like insane. I was playing on normal difficulty, and I'm sitting there thinking, how on earth am I meant to do this? And it's not a criticism of the game at all. I'm sure like 99.9999% people won't have this issue with that initial boss, but the rhythm of it, my brain just couldn't get around it. And so I went into the difficulty options and whacked things down and started experimenting, and it was really fine granular control. So I could open up the parry window to make things a bit easier for me to nail those parries, and I could reduce some of the damage that the boss was doing in between those opportunities. So if the boss can't one-shot kill you anymore, it gives you a bit more time to get your bearings and figure things out, and you're not hitting that game over screen every 2 seconds and feeling like I don't even have the opportunity to figure out what I'm meant to be doing here. I think it's less about making the game too easy and more about just giving yourself a bit more of a chance, slowing down the cadence of the game so it's not a cacophony. And for a lot of people, myself included, that's really valuable, and it makes these games way more enjoyable. Like, I really love the exploration aspect of this. I really love the art style of this. I really love the story, because it's a bit Saturday morning cartoon, but you know, it's good. It's a romp, as they used to call these sorts of things before that became a word for things that footballers get up to. And I'm sure there's a lot of folk out there who think this might be unnecessary and it's pandering. You know, it's a Metroidvania, you know the combat's difficult. That's what reviews are for. If it's going to be too hard, just don't buy it. And I get it, and there's a lot of hard games out there with uncompromisingly high difficulty, and the argument is that the designers have made the game that way, and if you're not able to meet that creative vision, if you're not able to meet the game in the middle with your skill level, then the game just isn't for you, and that's okay. And you know, I get that. I kind of agree. I've never spent money on a FromSoft game because I know exactly what I'll be getting into. In my case, like, many hours of frustration. But I think the approach taken by Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, even though it's not an approach that fits every project, I really hope this sort of granular difficulty management becomes something that we can expect from the vast majority of games. Because I love games and I want everyone else to love games, and I like the idea that everyone can have their experience exactly as challenging as they want it to be, and exactly as fun as they want it to be. And the crossover between what's challenging and what's fun is different for everyone. It's not the same mix for every single human being. So having options there where everyone can feel included, everyone can feel like they did beat a boss because it was difficult for them, but not so much that the game just let them win. And that people who want a proper, real hardcore challenge can get that too. 50 quid is the RRP of this game, and sadly, in this day and age, 50 quid is not considered a full price game, because that would now be 70 quid, which is just insane. But 50 quid is a lot of money, right? It is a lot of money, particularly to spend on a piece of entertainment. You know, how many home-cooked meals is that? It's a lot, right? We're in a cost of living crisis. There's a debate to be had about gaming as a value proposition that I'm absolutely not going to get into here, because this video was meant to be 2 minutes long, and I don't know how long it is now, because I've gone off on one, right? But I would just say that Ubisoft have made something here where if you hand over your 50 quid, you're pretty much guaranteed a good time, no matter your background or your skill level. Guaranteed your 50 quid's worth. It's a great leveler. I think it's probably a pretty good entry point into the Metroidvania genre, frankly. It's a bit of a pick and mix, a bit of a best of that whole genre. It's a fresh start for the whole Prince of Persia thing, and it's just a great piece of art that anyone can enjoy. So, you know, go and enjoy it when you get the chance. And I do actually think it's worth 50 quid. I'd fucking tell you if it wasn't as well. If this was like Far Cry 7, guaranteed I'd be sitting here going, didn't he pay 70 quid for Far Cry 7? Didn't he be an idiot? You doing that for? Wait till it's $2.99 in the sales. Install it and never play it like everyone else does with Far Cry games. But this Prince of Persia nonsense here, it's definitely worth the price of entry, even at launch. It's phenomenal. It's a real like pie in the face to all the people who kicked off because why are they bringing Prince of Persia back as a 2D game? Can you just be aware of things that happened before 2003? Come on. It's basically shown those people up to be the silly reactionary morons that they are. That's not even a cigarette. I don't even smoke.
Prince of Persia!
Hey, that's the name of the game.
Word of your deeds precedes you